Hello everyone, in this video tutorial I would like to show you how you can select multiple components in Blazor. So let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to create an empty Blazor WebAssembly project. And this should work with Blazor server as well, I believe. So I'm going to say over here in the terminal, on the new Blazor wasm empty. I'm going to call it selectable components. So you're going to go into that directory, selectable components. Let's see what we have here. First off, we can go here to the index HTML file and unlock those styles, like file scope, style sheets. Okay, and then we can go over here to the pages file. Let's remove this hello world. And it's going to be like our container for those child elements, child components. So let's create a corresponding CSS file. So index eraser CSS. Now we're just going to say container. Let's say border so that we can see it. 1 pixel solid red. Let's say height with 400 pixels, height maybe 700 pixels, overflow auto. Should be good enough for our purposes. So let's actually create our component. I'm going to say selectable component eraser and a corresponding style sheet. Selectable component eraser CSS. And here we're basically just gonna have two states. I mean, the basic one, which is selectable, like the general state of our component. We're gonna say, let's say padding 10 pixels and border 1 pixel dashed blue. And here when it's selected, select it. So when it's selected, we're just gonna change its background. So background color, maybe this. Alright, so we have something like this over here. Let's go to this component. And it's basically just a wrap around a div. So we're gonna have a div here. And we're gonna have it select the appropriate class based on its state. So let's go over to the code part. So let's define some parameters. There's going to be index to indicate which component it is to its parent. So and here we're going to say is selected to indicate whether it's selected or not. Here we're going to create a method, let's say get, actually not void but string, CSS get CSS class name. Or maybe just get class name to be good enough. So we're going to say selected. So is selected. We're going to ask is it selected? If so, then we're going to say selected. If not, then just nothing. I'm going to return an interpolated version of that string. So we're going to say selectable selected. All right, so we're going to go back here and say class and get class name. Okay, so now let's just create some events here to fire. So I'm going to say event callback. It's going to take an int to indicate which component we're dealing with. I'm going to say on mouse down. I'll explain a bit more soon. So on mouse enter, which is like for when we're dragging our mouse over multiple components. We kind of select in multiple components. And finally on mouse up, and it's not going to take anything here. So over here we're going to say a private async task handle mouse down. So this is like the beginning of our selection. Mouse event args. So we're going to check here if it's okay. Maybe let's try to move to the index file for a bit. Now let me explain something. So over here we're going to have basically like a private list of selections to indicate which one is selected, which one is not. So you're going to say selections. I'm going to make sure that it's not null, or so that the compiler doesn't yell at me. And here we're going to say on initialized selections, and we're going to specify how many elements we want, how many of those components we want. So we're going to say new list, and just to be very explicit, we're going to say enumerable repeat false, and maybe 10 times. So we're going to have 10 of those divs, of those elements, those components. I'm going to say selectable component, but let's put it in a loop. So we're going to have a for loop looping through that list. So selections count. So here you're going to have our selectable component, and you're going to say IDX is the current index. So let's see if we can get it to show at least. So .NET, watch. Okay, so as you can see, it's here. Let's maybe just say inside this component selectable component. Maybe let's specify its index as well. Let's include it. You can say idx +1 to string, so we can see the number. Okay, so you have your selectable component. So basically what we're trying to get is something like, you know, maybe you want to select this one and this one, for example. So multiple components, maybe you want to copy them, move them somewhere, delete them, do something with them. For example, let's say in the case of some, you know, Bible app, you could have like multiple verses to select from a certain passage. So we want to be able to select them and maybe copy the text from those components, from those verses. So this is definitely one use case. And there are many more, I believe. So I think it's pretty useful. And there may be many scenarios in which you can use that. So let's go back to the index element here, the index component. So we're just going to say, in my case, I'm going to enable the user to select multiple items if they're holding the control key down. So this is what I'm specifying here. And also I'm going to make sure they're holding the left mouse button down. So I'm going to say button is equal to 0. Then we're going to say await on mouse down, and we're going to fire this event. And we're going to pass the index here. All right, so then we have something like handle mouse enter, which corresponds to the user like holding the control key down and kind of dragging the mouse over the consecutive components, right? So this is the idea. So once again, we're trying to make sure that the user is holding those keys down. We're going to say on mouse enter, and actually since it's that makes sense, even though they're similar here. We kind of need to distinguish between those two events, so let's keep it there. I'm going to say private async task handle mouse up. No arguments here needed. I'm just going to say await on mouse up, invoke async. Okay, looks pretty good so far. So let's just make sure those events are fired properly. So we're going to use the on mouse down directive first. We're going to say on, basically handle mouse down, on mouse enter, handle mouse enter. I'm going to say on mouse up, handle mouse up. Okay, so now we have to connect those events to the parent component so we can make use of them. So first of all, let's check if it's selected or not, if the current item is selected or not. We're going to say selections, and select that particular item. And here we're going to actually need like similar methods. Maybe let's just copy those here. And here let's add one more field, private field. We're going to say bool is being selected. So we're going to know if the user is in the process of selecting multiple items. So here you're going to say handle mouse down. We don't really need async part now, so it's just going to say private void handle mouse down. And it's going to take an integer with the index. So this is like the beginning of our selection. So we're going to deal with that first. We're just going to set it to the opposite state basically. So selections at the given index set to the opposite of itself. I'm going to also say is being selected, true. Void and remove this task here. And we're going to also need our index. So we're going to say if is being selected, then we're going to set the selection to the opposite value. So true, false, false, true. And finally, handle mouse up, say void. And we're just going to say it's no longer being selected. So I'm going to say false. All right, so now let's connect this here. We say on mouse down, handle mouse down. You're going to say on mouse enter, handle mouse enter, on mouse up, handle mouse up. Okay, so let's try to see if it works. So I'm going to press my control key now. As you can see, as I hold it, I can select multiple items and deselect them as well, as long as I'm holding that key. I can also press one item, and while holding the control key, I can kind of move down and select multiple items just by dragging my mouse over them while holding the control key down. So yeah, then I can deselect them like even the same way if I want to. So that's the general idea here. I hope you find this video useful, and if you did, please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. So thank you for watching, and bye.